And he told me flat out, he said, you come to see me when I tell you to come. He said, I'll get you better. And I don't know if I believed it or not, but after a while I was walking with a cane and he come in there one day and he says, what are you doing with that cane? I said, I got to have this. I can't walk without this. He said, you keep coming, I'll get your cane.
Before we get started, Caroline, just want all of our patients to know out there, do not forget to share this. And also, if you're a first-time listener, you can come to any of the Heskett Family Chiropractic locations for $47, and that includes your x-ray, exam, consultation, and your first adjustment. Right, Caroline? So now we have a special guest on our podcast today.
47.
Probably the most special to me because I won't spoil it for all of y'all, but I'll just tell you that he's my hero. I grew up just looking up to this man, and I've got a lengthy introduction. We normally at Revolution, we do not allow him to share his attributes because he's very good at it. He likes to say the things he's accomplished, but I want to do that today just because I think it is relevant. We have my brother, Dr. Dennis Heskett. He is 16 years older than I am, although he's losing weight now. He can't, if you can see him, he's got this fine little goatee and he has more hair than me. He reminds me of that on a regular basis. So he's looking young and spry today, Caroline, on the podcast. If you can't, all right. So I want to give you a little background about Dennis.
I love it. I'm so pumped.
First of all, Dennis is the first doctor in our family. And at the time, he was working at the steel mill. I won't steal his thunder. I want him to share a little bit about it. But went back to chiropractic school. And not only did he go back, he had straight A's and was on the dean list all the way through chiropractic school. He was a senior intern while he was at Life University. While he was there, he earned during the chiropractic program, which Gage is going through now, my son at Sherman. It is rigorous. It is 7 to 8 classes. In addition to that, he earned his bachelor's degree in nutrition while he was at Life University. After he graduated, I was graduating high school, which is crazy. When he graduated chiropractic college in around 1990, he picked a town off the map, didn't know anybody there. It sounds familiar from our first podcast. I wonder how I got that. Ended up Morristown, went door to door for 3 months and met over 3,000 people. And within 6 weeks of practice, he was adjusting over 100 patients in a day. He's a state representative for Life University for over 20 years and was given the Distinguished Fellow Award from the International Chiropractic Association. The biggest part about all of this and the most impressive accomplishment is that he's been married almost 50 years. Him and his wife were dating when I was 4 or 5. They used to take me around and show me off to other people of his age that were married and had kids. They've been married almost 50 years. He has 3 children, Deandra, Adam, and Ian. Deandra and Adam are both chiropractors, and Ian runs the G2G hunting club, which we'll talk about in a minute, and he has 5 grandchildren. So, whew, man, without any further ado, I feel somewhat like I've introduced. He has never, ever heard me introduce him like that. But I wanted it for the record in case any of the great-grandkids come back and listen to this podcast. Also, one thing I didn't share is he's shared in over 15 different states across the United States. He's in Canada. He was a regular speaker at Dynamic Essentials, and he helps us at the Chiropractic Revolution. So I wanted to say all that not because he asked me to, but because I am so proud of him and all that he has accomplished. And he's old, and you know a lot of the best things he's done is ahead of him, maybe. So thank you, Dennis, for being on today. That's all. Welcome to Coffee with a Chiro. Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. You know, I don't feel worthy, but in a way, I've actually drank more coffee in the last month than I have in my entire life to make this legit so I could be on this program.
Yes, Coffee with a Chiro. You could tell by I'll fire. I wouldn't have went so fast with that, but
Yes,
it's just so
love
much,
it.
Caroline. So much. Have I ever introduced anybody on this podcast like that?
No,
Dr.
I
Ben
don't even
Rawl,
know if
Dr.
they've
Ben
had that
Rawl, Dr.
many
Matt
boxes to
Thomas,
check.
and
Seriously,
especially Dr. Pete
not.
Sulak will never, ever, ever let me live this down. So, first question, Caroline.
Yeah. No. Oh my gosh. Okay. Coffee with the Chiro with the Heskett brothers. I love this so much. Dennis, Dr. Dennis Heskett, tell everybody, we want to hear your background, your story, how you came into chiropractic
Yeah,
care, heard about it,
actually, when I got
and
out of high
decided to
school,
be
I
a
went to work in a
chiropractor.
steel mill, exactly where my dad said, I don't care what you do, go to college, do whatever, just don't go to work in the steel mill. So right out of high school, I went to work right in the steel mill because you could make good money at that time. And I was there about 8 years and had an accident. I ended up in the hospital. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. Actually was there for a couple of weeks, and finally they just said they were going to do major surgery on my spine. And a friend of mine sowed the seed in my life about had I ever tried chiropractic. I didn't know anything about it at all. As a matter of fact, I asked my neurosurgeon. I said, "Hey, instead before we do this surgery next week, I'm thinking about trying a chiropractor. And what do you think?" And he flat out told me, he said, "If you see a chiropractor in your current condition, you'll be paralyzed and you'll never walk again." That's what I was told, and didn't like that answer. I've always kind of gone against authority, I guess, more or less throughout my lifetime. So I looked up a chiropractor. His name actually ended up being Dr. Claire Odell, who was world famous out of Michigan. And, you want to talk about a legacy, 250 some of his patients are chiropractors, and I'm one of them. And I started going to his office. I couldn't, like I said, I needed help standing up. I couldn't even stand straight. And he told me flat out, he said, "You come to see me when I tell you to come." He said, "I'll get you better." And I don't know if I believed it or not, but after a while, I was walking with a cane, and he come in there one day and he says, "What are you doing with that cane?" I said, I got to have this. I can't walk without this." He said, "You keep coming, I'll get your cane." And I had been seeing him about a month. And that's the first time I really believed him, because I looked around his office and he had collected canes. I mean, he had hundreds of canes in every corner of his office. He had them hanging on the wall, he had them everywhere. And I said, "Well, he got all these canes. Surely he can get mine." And sure enough, long story short, I walked in there one day and handed him my cane. It impressed me so much that I bid a job in the steel mill working. I was off work about 3 months. When I went back to work, I bid a job working 4 to 12 shift in the afternoon, and I started college for the first time when I was 28. Um, at that time, you had to have 2 years of college to get into a chiropractic university. So I did that for 2 years, worked afternoons, and went to college during the day. But as soon as I got my two years in, me and my wife, we sold everything we had. She had a great job. She was an executive secretary. But we had a house. We literally had everything. We had a house. We had a motorcycle. We had a camper. We had all the toys. We had everything. And we sold it all for me to go to Life University and change my life at 28. And really, I went just to get out of the steel mill. But as soon as I got into life, the first speaker I ever heard speak on chiropractic and the vision was Dr. Ian Grasham. And wow, my son Ian Palmer is actually named after him. But he changed my life with a new vision, a new purpose, and I literally bought into it and got around. The more I was at Life University, I got around some of the great visionaries that I've ever met in my life uh, about living a life with purpose um, and being called to be a chiropractor.
I mean, I just want to say, first of all, that the amount of work ethic and selflessness that takes to just drop everything and just, like you said, go against the grain, go against the neurosurgeon, probably what your friends and people were telling you, this is crazy, to do what you did, and now to look at your legacy of how many lives that you have changed, from your brother to your patients to your children. That is such a testament. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it, Michael. Like, you're gonna sit here. He's gonna be crying the whole episode already.
Yeah, so I want to say
this is all we're gonna do for the next.
I'd like to shed some light on it from my standpoint. So all this time, I'm probably running from 9 years old to 12 years old, watching this go on, and yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Rudy, but there's a lot of parallels to the story. He's I'm gonna play at Notre Dame, but it's what's really cool about it is Dennis had a good job, and I'm quite certain. I love my dad. He was amazing. We lost him, it was 20 something years ago, but I'm sure my dad was not the most encouraging person in the situation to say, this is a great idea. Why don't you quit working at the steel mill after you've got 10 years in, which the steel mill was very good to my father. He retired at 50 and then drew a pension check from there. But, every time I hear the story, I don't get emotional about it because I do, because of Dennis and the risk that he took. There's a massive amount of risk to get on that bus like Rudy did and say, well, I know you don't want me to go, Dad, but I'm going to Notre Dame. And there's risk in saying I'm moving all my whole family. But what really gets me emotional about the story is that Claire O'Dell they said directly, not indirectly. Indirectly means Dennis sent me directly, and then I sent people. That's indirectly. I mean that Claire O'Dell directly talked to 149 other dentists and sent them to chiropractic school. And he was not just about, hey, this chiropractic stuff works. He was about, this is changing the planet and changing lives. And so I've got to help as many people as I can get to chiropractic school. And then Dennis directly sends well over 50 people to chiropractic, or probably more. We don't know exactly, but he directly, and then there's no telling how many indirectly, but it all stems from that.
What's kind of unique and adding to that is Dr. Claire O'Dell. Like I said, he was a legend, but he was also really, really strong in the formation and the long lasting of Sherman College, which ironically Michael's son is there. And I don't really think Sherman would be tough to even be around if it wasn't for Claire O'Dell. So
yeah, that's crazy, but just how it all links. And so, I know Caroline's probably got another question for you, but what,
I think she does.
looking back, she definitely does. But looking back over the time, when we tell that story, and like looking back over the years, almost, right at, or a little over 30 years of being a chiropractor, just like give us this in a synopsis, like what it what it was like over the past 30 years to go to Murray, Kentucky. You don't know anybody. You're setting up a chiropractic office. What was chiropractic like then and compared to how it is now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Chiropractic itself has not changed. It's still a drug-free, natural healthcare system. That hasn't changed. What has changed a little bit in the fact that, as they say, back in the day, you didn't choose to be a chiropractor. I mean, it was against the law. At certain times, it was against the law to do that. You were breaking the law to become a chiropractor and to actually adjust somebody. Insurance didn't pay for it. Medical insurance didn't pay for it. Medicare didn't pay for it. I mean, it wasn't a good career, quote, career move. People didn't just choose it. The reason they became a chiropractor is because of, number one, it either saved their life, like it did mine, or it saved their wife's life, or it saved one of their children's life. They experienced a miracle in a chiropractic office that turned on a light bulb in that person that says, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So that's changed over time. I mean, you got people now that are choosing it as a career, and it is a great career. But like I said, that part of it's changed. Back in the day too, is I remember when I first started, you're talking about going to a town that didn't know anybody, but I was fanatical about what I was doing, about it being drug free. I pushed a float in the 4th of July parade here in a town I didn't know anybody, and my float said drugs kill, either pushed or prescribed. That's what the float said. Um, there's
And it
no difference
said,
between a
I believe it
prescribed
said,
drug.
it didn't say 180,000 people die every year or something.
Yes, that was on the back of it. The statistics was on the back of it. Yes. But
So
that
much
turns
for the
out, you look how
podcast,
that
Caroline.
plays out. There's no difference between push to prescribed drugs. You look at the opioids right now, the Xanax, the Lortab, the Oxycontin, all those are prescribed drugs that are a number one killer in the United States today. So, I had a message and I was fearless in it. Now, I didn't gain a lot of friends, I can tell you that, in my town, but I was fearless in what I was doing, and sold out for sure.
I think that was all part of like God's plan for you. Like you said earlier,
Yeah,
how you always just felt like you could go against the grain, or I think that's part of
yeah,
like the
right.
firstborn too was always like more rebellious
But
of the
part
last
of that too, I wanted to
stepper,
finish that thought while I
and
had
I
it.
definitely
Sorry,
think
Caroline, is the
you,
fact that that's what's changed. When I first opened,
oh, you're
my
good.
99% of my
Mhm.
education on patients was sitting down with them and talking about drugs and the side effects and what they did and how they were killing you, and that there's a different way. But really, a lot of it was bashing drugs. Today, you don't have to do that. We got people running to our office every day and saying, hey, I don't want to take this stuff. It's killing me. I want to do something else. Can you help me? So it's totally changed. You used to have to run and tackle somebody and say, hey, I'm a chiropractor. And then you had to hang on to them because they wanted to run away from you. And now they're running to us. So that part of it's changed a lot.
I think for sure people are waking up more and more to the side effects and the
Yeah, and
negative
because Dennis got
things that come
started
along
later,
with
like we
those
said earlier, I
prescription
graduated
drugs.
high school in 90 and I graduated chiropractic school in 95. So really, from a chiropractic standpoint, I'm about 5 years behind Dennis. So he's right at 33 years and I'm at 28, so here's the deal. I echo what he said with that question is the fact that the reason, like now with our people are asking me, why are you opening more clinics? And even my mom, she's 89, she goes, ain't that enough? And the answer to the question is, it's not about whether it's enough clinics. It's about what's happening in communities. What is happening if we don't go to Dandridge? What happens if we don't move to Straw Plains? The number one thing that gets said to me when I cover the Straw office, I don't go up there much, is that thank God you put this office here. I live right down the road. It's changed my life. That's why we're not stopping at 4 clinics, Caroline, is because people are dying and it's not like it was 20. The necessity is there. All you have to do, to me right now, there's never been a better time to be a chiropractor because you don't even have to talk people into chiropractic. I'm kind of a little bit pissed off at Adam and Deandra because they never got the screening days. They never, Adam Deandra is Dennis's kids, but they never stood in Ingalls holding a spine and made an idiot out of themselves. Yeah. Going, hey, why are you standing in Ingalls holding a spine? Because I want you to know that God designed you to be healthy, and the only way you're going to be healthy is if your nervous system is functioning at its optimum. They didn't know. Now people are like, oh, I'm going to the chiropractor. And not only do they go, Caroline, they bring their children. Yesterday, I was in the office and we checked no shortage of 50 kids under the age of 7. We checked at least 5 kids that are under the age of 1 month. It's insane. And that is because parents are realizing that chiropractic first, drug second, surgery last. They're saying, I would rather get the natural approach to health and get my child healthy naturally than I would go through all of this rigmarole of even the vaccines. Vaccines, when Dennis started 33 years ago, he didn't vaccinate his kids, right? And when he was telling people that in Murray, they were like, did you fall and bump your head? Do you not know that your kids are not going to survive and they can't go to public school? Tell them, Dennis.
Yeah, that's right. It was like I said, educating people that there is a different way. And I was told that so many times that our kids weren't being in school, and the laws were the law. You know, you had exemptions back then, just like you do now. Some people still think that you can't get your child in school or in a college, and every state has exemptions, religious exemptions, medical exemptions. All you have to do is fill out the forms. But and I have never, ever once ever told somebody not to get a vaccine. What I have tried to do is empower them what's in the vaccine, what the risks are, how they work, and empower them with more information so they can make the best decision whether they want to or not. I have tons and tons and tons of patients that have not vaccinated their children, but I've never told them to do it or not to do it.
Right.
Well, and speaking and staying on that, Dennis, how do you feel like chiropractic care and you going to school and becoming a chiropractor
Yeah, I mean,
changed how you
Michael
and your
said it,
wife
and
raised
it
your
didn't take me
kids?
much to get Michael fired up a while ago, did it? But he said it in there. That
Oh, you
chiropractic
already know.
first, drug second, surgery last. What I was taught, and I tried to live that out and have lived that out. And I ended up with, like Michael was saying, my daughter's a chiropractor. She's 37. She's got 3 grandkids, and Adam's got 2 grandkids, and he's 35, and then Ian's 30 some. I mean, they've never had any drugs, and so I got to watch it play out in their lives. And not only that, I got to watch them become adults and make the same decisions for their kids. So just in my little decision some 30 some years ago, 40 some years ago, maybe, to decide to become a chiropractor has changed the whole legacy of our family. We're in 3rd generation now of a drug-free family. So it's awesome.
Yeah. So I've never asked you this question, so we're going to ask it now live on the podcast. The very first podcast, if you refer to, was a life changing. I can't say it. A life changing moment for me, but I have never really heard you tell it. The story of. So I'd like you to pick up. I'm in 3rd quarter. I have a
All right.
1.9 grade average. I call you and say I failed a class, and then I'll let you pick up the story there. And I want to hear your side of what happened.
I'm going to start a little deeper than that. I'm going to start
I do
when
too.
I was on break at Life University, and I was in college, and Michael was, I believe, a freshman in high school, maybe a junior, or maybe a sophomore. I think he was 16 years old, so that would make him a sophomore. And we went fishing, and really, because I had been sewn into at Life University by these visionaries, and with a purpose and with a mission, the first person I tried to sew into was Michael. We were fishing that day, and I just asked him what did he want to do with the rest of his life. What did that look like? And he didn't have a clue. He's 16 years old and this and that. He said, I don't really know. I said, well, how about this? How about we just say you're going to be a chiropractor? Just say that. And if something else comes along, if you want to be a fireman and a fireman steals you away from being a chiropractor, that's great. Or if you want to be a whatever, a football star, that's great. But for right now, let's just say you're going to do that. And he went to school, Caroline. I wish you could have met Michael in the 10th grade. Um, oh my God. I mean, his sense of humor and his laughter and
I do
everything
too.
was the
Oh,
same.
I do too.
What was
keep
not the
keep going,
same,
keep going.
what was not the same in the 10th grade, you could not understand him. He had such a strong Alabama drawl. He couldn't even speak. You were like, huh? What? Oh man, you know what I'm talking about. So, but yeah. So when he started telling friends that in the 10th
Oh
grade
no.
that he was going to be a doctor someday, he was pretty much the laughing stock. And if you fast forward that to his 10-year reunion, they asked him to speak there as a doctor. So that's how that goes. But yeah, he was the first person I sewed into. And then fast forwarding that a little bit, he gets in chiropractic school, and I don't know, he's a young guy. He's 20 years old in the middle of Atlanta, never left South Alabama. I mean, good grief, you throw him into the big area that time in Atlanta was Buckhead. We're talking about Party Central. It's like having a beach in the middle of a city. Bars open, club anytime. Well, what's your hours? Anytime. They're open 24 hours. I mean, you can fall into that trap for sure. And unfortunately, what Michael's talking about is he was like in second quarter and he had a grade point average of a 1.9, which is less than a C. And if you go less than C, you lose your loans. So he was on probation. Calls me, he's told me he flunked a couple of classes that quarter. And it was spring break and that he was going to Florida to Panama City on spring break. And I said, no. I said, change of plan. I said, you're going to come to my office. He said, dude, I can go to Florida. It's costing me like $28 for 4 days. There's like 17 of us staying in a room. I said, no, you're coming to the office. And this is how great God works, because he was in my office following me around when a little baby come in. And the baby was like 6, 8 months old, as I remember it, and had not had a normal bowel movement since it had been born. And it was actually an ashen gray colored child. It didn't have normal pink skin. Just, you knew something was up with this child right when you looked at it. And the parents told me that they had actually had to take it to the hospital every couple of weeks, and they actually had to dig some of the stuff out for the bowel movement and stuff. And could I help? And I said, well, we'll see. And we'll take the interference off the nerves there that we found, and we'll try to restore the body back to normal function. And let's see how this plays out. Well, it played out right in front of our eyes, because as soon as I adjusted this baby, it started using the bathroom. And the mom didn't have any diapers, had no use for diapers. So she didn't have any diapers, didn't have anything. So we were looking just for, get some paper towels. And then we were looking for a towel, and then like, bring a gown in here. I really wish there's certain times in my office that I wished I could have filmed it. But I wished I really could have filmed the amount of stuff that came out of that little baby. You would have seen the pile and said, no way that was inside of that. It was just too much stuff. But anyways, as soon as the baby started using the bathroom, the very moment that I adjusted them, um, the color changed to pink. I mean, it was just visual that something big had just happened. And I looked over at Michael, and he lost it. And the next thing I know, I'm going from room to room. That's what's great about this profession, man. You go in one room and it's one thing. You go in another room, it's totally. So I got to keep adjusting. So I go in the next room, and I go in the next room. I finally get caught up, and I go in my office, and Michael's on the floor with his face on the ground, actually bawling. And he said, "What is that? What just happened?" I said, "Michael, that's what we do, man." I said, that's it. You got to see it. That's what we do. That's what you have a chance to do. You just got to quit screwing around and get it done. Get out there. There's people dying that need you. And he looked at me in the face and he said, you just tell me what to do. And I said, Michael, I've been telling you what to do. He said, no. He said, you tell me what to do. I'll do exactly what you tell me. And, the big story is I told him to go home and throw a party. And then he did that. He went home and threw a party. And I said, at midnight, you got to get up on a chair and you got to look around. And you got to look at all these people that are at your party. And you got to get rid of every one of them out of your life. They're watching you fail, watching you flunk out. They're not helping you. And I said, you gotta get around different people and that have the same vision that you have, the same goals that you have. So it's an easy system. Just go to the front of the class, find that guy that's sitting up there that's making the straight A's, tap him on the shoulder, say, hey, you gotta humble yourself, say, I'm in trouble, I'm failing, I need your help. Will you help me? He ended up doing that to his valedictorian of his class, ended up being valedictorian of his class, and the rest of the way through school, he made B's and C's. The rest of the
A's and B's. A's and B's.
A's and B's. Oh, sorry. Yeah, A's and B's.
I put a cap on that. I got a text message from him last week. I was in a text thread with him last week. His name is Dr. George Logothetis. He practices up in New Jersey. And I told him if I wasn't have been a part of his study group, they would have never made it. But he told me I couldn't come. And I said, I'll do anything. And he said, well, you can come to the study group, but you cannot talk. And I was like, that's impossible. You asked me to fly. That's like asking me to fly. But yeah, it's better when Dennis tells it. Snot bubbles. That is exactly what happened. But I look at so many kids today, and I think how many. Well, first of all, if you don't know, like you're in the middle of it, so you don't know. And I still have friends with a lot of the people that were in that room. Some of them made it out of Chiro school, but I'd say 30% of them did and 70 didn't. So I would say that was some excellent advice. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but adjusting all those kids yesterday would not have happened unless I would have had a bigger brother who's more like a mentor and a father to me to tell me what to do. And then this is for all the people out there that can't take advice, is to trust him, because I know there's nobody that thinks he's dumber than his own kids. And I have to remind him, I'm like, he's not so dumb because the reason I know that is because I know sometimes Gage goes, Dad, do you think I'm an idiot? I'm like, no, just watch out for this, because nobody wants to listen to their own parents. But I'm so grateful that I had the counsel, that counsel in my life, and that I made that turn at that point of my life. So thank you very much for sharing that story, and also for being there for me. He left out one part, and that is that was a 6 to 8 weeks old baby. It was very small. And also, too, he left out the point that if you don't come to stay with me for spring break, then you can send me my credit card. Because I had his credit card for emergencies, and a lot of those emergencies would happen in Buckhead, believe it or not. And so I was in a bind. No. I had to go to Murray, Kentucky for my spring break. It was amazing.
I would have loved not only Dennis to see the adjustment that you did on that baby, but I would have loved also to have it filmed where Michael has that party.
I didn't verbally say it.
Standing on the chair telling everybody they got it.
I was nice, but yeah. I just got up on the chair and I was like, this is going to be, and I really wasn't expecting it to be as difficult. But that Monday, the first day of class, I went straight to the front. And then every night I went to a study group from 6 o'clock after class to 10 every single night. And because I knew that my life was not mine, it was about, it changed, it clicked for me. And I know it clicked for Dennis at some point. He has the same kind of story, but it clicked for me that this is not a game. Lives are on the line. And just this week, Dennis, we had a head up baby, the baby's head up. Webster technique. We did the Webster technique because we have so many pregnant patients and kids, and within 3 days that baby flipped back around And it was so
Yeah.
awesome. Like, she just like, yeah, the baby flipped. I was like, that is so awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that we physically turn the baby, but like we adjust
Miracle.
the mom and allow the hips to create that space, and the baby turns itself. But when it's constrained and
Yes.
subluxated, it can't do that. Dennis,
Yeah.
did you have something? I thought you were going to say something there.
No, no. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I tell people all the time, what a life worthy of living. I mean, it's been incredible. Um, I adjusted a pregnant mom some years ago that she was pregnant, then started adjusting the baby days after it was born, hours really after it was born. That same baby is in college right now to be a chiropractor. I mean, it's just it blows your mind when you think about some of the stuff that's happened over time.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
Well, I wanted to ask, since we're on the line of talking about miracles, Dennis, do you have like a favorite miracle or just moment that happened in your office that is just
Yeah, one
maybe
of the
your
things
top or one of your
that's
tops that just
challenging in
sticks
our
out to
profession
you?
is to tell people what we know. And what we know a lot of times is pretty scary, to step out that boldly and tell people what you know. Like if a president of a university comes in, you don't really want to sit them down and start from zero and say, this is what we do. But, and I didn't do that a whole lot when I first started, tell everybody. I was telling some people the chiropractic story, the chiropractic lifestyle, but there were some that was borderline that I don't really want to run them off with my crazy views. So, but I went in and a lady come in one time and could not move. She could not stand up. She couldn't walk. She was having a lot of trouble, a lot of pain. So we brought her in. We started adjusting her, and she come in one day and she says, Dr. Heskett, I have to tell you something. And she was walking at that point. She said, you literally saved my life. This is such a miracle. And I was like, well, yeah, you were in a lot of trouble. Couldn't stand up, couldn't walk, this, that. She said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, when I graduated college, she said, I did my internships in college and when I was getting my master's degree with a Fortune 500 company. And she said, they hired me right out of college. And she said, I kept track of that company. If I could have worked at that company 10 years, not only myself, but not only my kids, but my grandkids would have been financially set. She said it was that type of job, that type of opportunity. And she said I lost it because I had headaches. And there was days I just could not go to work and I could not function. And they actually helped me get my next career, which was a great career, but I lost that job because of my headaches. And she said, then I got another job. And she said, to make a long story short, I've downstepped about 4 or 5 careers because I've had headaches. I'm happy, don't get me wrong. I got my white picket fence and my kids, and I'm happy, and God's been good to me. She said, but I lost so much because of headaches. And she said, since I've been coming to you, I have not had a headache. And she said, I didn't even come to you for that. She said, it's been an amazing transformation. Then she missed her next visit. Then she missed her next visit. Then she missed her next visit. I'm like, are you kidding me? You share that with me and then you're not showing up. Then she finally showed up. And when she showed up, I walked in the room and she was laying on the table crying, boo-hooing. And it got me crying and I didn't really know why we were crying. And she said, I have to tell you something. She said, I've missed my last 3 or 4 appointments. And I was like, yeah. And thinking in my mind, that part I know. And she said, but I have been at the hospital. And she said, last week we put my little boy in there to had tubes put in his ears. And he's had a reaction to the anesthesia. And he's in a coma. He hasn't woken up. And she said, I have not left this side in over a week. And she said, but I knew I had to get here today. She said, because my headache started coming back and my back started hurting. And she said, but I need to hurry up and get back to my little boy, which, to put a plus on that, it all turned out okay. But as I was bringing her up from the table, me and God had a 30-minute conversation that only lasted 30 seconds. But God was like, ask her. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to ask her. And God was like, ask her. And I said, no, I'm not asking her. God was like, ask her. So when I got her up, I looked her in her eyes and I said, can I ask you something? She said, yeah. I said, why didn't you bring your little boy here first? And she said, I didn't know you could help. She said, I didn't even know you could help with headaches. I just knew you could help with back until my headaches were gone. She said, I don't even know that you adjusted kids. She said, I didn't know you could help at all. And I said, never again. If a patient ever comes through my door, I'm going to tell them the full, complete story of what we have available to them and let them make a choice whether they want it or not. It's not my job to help them choose. It's not my job to get mad because they don't choose. It's not my job to care what they choose. It's just my job to tell them the truth. And I've spent my life doing that. It's the same thing with the gospel, isn't it? It's not our job to save them. It's just our job to tell them about our Savior.
So good. So good. All right. In closing, that's so awesome. What a great podcast. In closing, tell us a little bit about your what God has done in the second season of your life. I would say in generation to generation, it is our passion. For those of you who listen to the podcast, you know that we were born and raised to duck hunt. We are duck hunters. It is in our blood. It's something that we love to do, not just because it has zero to do with the ducks and everything to do with well, maybe not zero. I would say 20% for us now and about 80% for Adam and Ian. But it's more about the fellowship that we get to do as a family and to share that with others. So just kind of briefly share about generation to generation and what God's doing through that. I know Ian, he is going to be, he doesn't know it yet, but he is already going to be on the Coffee with Chiro podcast, a future episode. Yes, that's right. To share with us about G2G more in depth, so you don't have to do that. But share with us in generalities kind of what's going on in West Tennessee, where my dad was born about 2 miles away from where the farm is. Actually, Uncle George's house was right there, and Dennis acquired that from my parents. And now it has expanded into something that my dad would absolutely do. He would say, it's too much, son. It's too much. But it just continues. The more I say it can expand, the more it expands. So share with a little bit about what's going on there at G2G.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, it all started that I bought the land that my grandfather hunted and trapped on his whole life. And it was just a 200-acre plot of land that we were hunting there in the early 90s and throughout the 90s. But you used to have to be a Heskett to hunt there. And really, through a life transformation on my part of going through a time and period of what do I have in my life that I put before God a little bit, that question came up, and duck hunting was very, very strong. And I was like, well, I gotta quit duck hunting. I mean, I don't want anything before God. But then I started praying, and God revealed to me. I said, God, you gave me this property. It fell in my lap like everything else in my life. You blessed me with it. So how can I bless you with it? And God revealed to me that I was to stop being selfish, that it wasn't just about us and our inner circle. And I was just raised that way. Like my family was just like, you can't bring anybody here that doesn't have the last name of Heskett. That's period, said, done, over. So it's been such a blessing in my life. And God just said, I want you to bring people to what I blessed you with this. I want you to bring people here and talk about me and how I've blessed you in your life. Bless others with what I'm blessing you with. The moment I did that, I could tell you story after story from my own cousin being baptized in those backwaters since that happened. being baptized there, that God has taken that place and used it. And we gone from just a family of a little old blind that held 4 to 5 to 6 people to now we're running 3 groups of 8 people. So we've got 24 people in the lodge now. And the blessing of that is how this works. Once I started giving it over to God, I was on a golf course in the middle of summer and got a phone call, and it was a guy that we have been looking at his property since I was a little bitty baby. My dad looked at his property since he was a little bitty baby. Like, if we could have some duck property, that would be it. Well, that person called me on a golf course about 5 years ago and said, "Hey, we're thinking about releasing some of this property. Do you want it?" And we ended up getting it. So it's just expanded, and that allowed us to bring another group, and it's just expanded. So we're not done, but we're having fun. It's a blast.
I'm waiting for the next or for the first all female
We've
duck
done
hunt.
those.
I think that
We
that
have
We have
could
girls'
be a
day.
thing.
We have girls' day.
we have wives' days, we have girls' days, and stuff like that. And um, you know, I put challenge to Faith, Michael's daughter. She just started hunting. I said, Faith, I want you to learn how to blow a duck collar this year. So
Or
when opening day of season comes this year, I'm gonna tell everybody shut up. Faith's gonna blow them in. So
yeah, you better be ready. Better be ready. Better be ready. That's awesome. What a great, and I remember when Dennis got that property,
Yes.
it was around 95, and, it's just a blessing. And all of that has come from, us trying to do the best we can, no matter what, anybody says. The most amazing thing is that it came from a passion to be able to change and save lives through chiropractic. And that has been the foundation, really, of Dennis. But the greatest part about Dennis's legacy that he is leaving is that we don't agree upon everything. And if you think that all of us, they come to these revolutions, and I want what your family got. Look at the Hesketts. They get along so good. They're having so much fun. Let me tell you, we can get down to it sometimes. But when something is wrong, I remember one time Adam and I got into it, and I was so upset, and I was in Jefferson City, almost home. 6 hours later, the phone rang, and it was Adam, and he called me and he said, "Uncle Mike, I talked to you in a way that I don't think was right. I disrespected you, and I want to call you and apologize." And to me, more than offices, more than patience, more than anything, is that the Lord has blessed our family with the ability to say something's not right, and we will uncomfortably sit down and talk it out until it is right, rather than go behind each other's back. And that is the biggest blessing to me of being a Heskett and being part of this family. And so, Dennis, I know you're the patriarch of that, and I am so honored to be your younger brother and to be a part of the journey that God has called us on. And I was teasing you earlier, but I know it's just the beginning, and we've got more lives to save and more people to help. So thank you for being on Coffee with the Chiro.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Can I stop drinking coffee now?
Thank you so much, Dennis.